everything in my family isn't perfect. But it's my family, it's who made me who I am. And in the same way, what we have here in Texas with our monuments, they're a part of who we are. And I'm here just to let you know that I do support monument protection. And then of course, especially with what's the Alamo and the Cenotaph have been going under, we must protect the Alamo and the Cenotaph. You know, there's been things in history that happened where people were outnumbered against great odds, but only with the Alamo, they weren't given quarter. They weren't given an option. And to change that history of these free men opposing a great military that wanted to take away their guns and liberties and other things, and the fact that not only did they not back down, but they weren't given quarter. We need to remember that history. We need to remember that bravery and not change it. Because you know, as you study history and you hear about one civilization conquering another, a big threat was that they would destroy all their history. If they had any documents then, they would destroy them. If they had monuments, they would destroy them. Because they wanted people to never remember those people were there. We need to keep history. We need to keep our monuments so we can learn, our kids can learn, and as people always say, so we don't repeat bad mistakes. But we can also remember and model bravery and courage. So thank you so much for having me here. Honored to be with you. Have a great day.
Thank you, Representative Slaton.
Get out of the way! Get out of the way! Get out of the way! Thank you.
Over there at the crowd.
I ain't going anywhere. I'm going around here. What your dad got heathens? What are you trying to do? Stop it.
All righty, guys. I got an opening statement. Like I said, Representative Slaton had to get back to the House floor. I intended to do this before, but we'll start it right now. Historic monuments are the cultural heritage of any state and country. They speak 1,000 words about the place, its traditions, the historic significance. Monuments take the path of knowing our past and connecting it to our future. Societies have long sought to protect and preserve their cultural heritage for reasons ranging from education to historical research to the desire to reinforce a sense of identity. In times of war and conflict, cultural identity and cultural heritage become more important. Buildings, monuments, and symbols of culture that speak in shared roots acquire and increase significance. Accordingly, they can become targets of violent and oppressive actions that seek to destroy the symbols that are valued by Texans. Every state in the United States of America comprises many historical monuments. Texas leads the nation with a rich and unique history, especially when it comes to the Texas Revolution and the Civil War. While some monuments are under threat and getting destroyed, some are intact, but the left's cancel culture is still seeking to destroy them. Today, many states are making efforts to save their historical monuments so that its cultural heritage does not suffer or become lost forever. Unfortunately, Texas does not lead the way. We are falling behind 13 other states that have passed a monument protection bill already. Why are Texas monuments so important to the people of Texas? I can tell you several reasons. They have an intrinsic value and provide a sneak peek into our heritage. They give a deeper insight into our cultures and traditions of the old. We know the quality of life people had over 100 years ago. Monuments endow us with the details about a variety and quality of materials used back in those past days. They provide a detailed idea about the craftsmanship and the mining. We recognize the architectural intelligence of people in the past that compiled huge structures in the period when there was little to no technology. It becomes easy to analyze the history of the place and viewing its historical monuments. They increase the significance of the sight of people from far off places as they come to visit. Monuments increase the incoming of foreign currency to countries by foreign visitors. They help in educating and imparting every bit and pieces of information and past that make things more interesting. They assist in providing the detail of entertainment and educational value of the place. Some historical monuments with inscriptions provide us the detail about the past and their mode of communication. Monuments maintain a sense of primacy and heritage of the city and make it more valuable for the state and country. It helps us to connect with our cultural roots and traditions emotionally. And lastly, historical monuments are the pride of their respective states. They showcase the culture importance of the place and the architectural intelligence of the people. With these points, it becomes clear that historical monuments are very precious to us. Their conservation, the upkeep, and proper maintenance are also essential to enhance their life. It will assist our future generations to get to know their ancestors and enlighten with an abundance of knowledge. The Democrats want to destroy and to rewrite our history. George Orwell said, the most effective way to destroy people is to deny and obliterate their own understanding of history. In the former Soviet Union, censorship, rewriting of history, and eliminating undesirable people became part of the Soviets' effort to ensure that the correct ideology and political spin was put to their history. Deviation from official propaganda was punished by confinement and labor camps and even execution. Although we haven't reached this point here in the United States, this is the direction that the far left wants to take us. In San Antonio, Mayor Ron Nirenberg and District Councilman Roberto Trevino had the Travis Park monument removed in the dead of night in 2017. Former Dallas Mayor Rollins removed the statue of Robert E. Lee with Confederate rider in 2017. He also wanted to remove the Confederate War Memorial in Pioneer Park, which sits in a cemetery, which absolutely blows holes in the theory of Democrats when they say, oh, they should be in a cemetery where they belong. Again, in 2017, San Antonio Mayor, along with General Land Commissioner George P. Bush, wanted to move the Alamo Cenotaph 600 feet off of the Alamo footprint. This is Texas Freedom Force had structural engineers come and assess the monument. They determined that if they tried to move the monument, they would permanently destroy it. Still, the city of San Antonio pushed forward anyway. Many Texans believe this was done on purpose. They believed that the city wanted to do so to revise a more inclusive history and to change the way we think about the Alamo. The job of tyrants and busybodies is never done. When they accomplish one goal, they move their agenda to something else. In Texas, if we give them an inch, they'll take a yard. So I say, don't give them an inch in the first place. Not 1 inch. The hate Texas types use every tool in their disposal to achieve their agenda and discrediting and demeaning our history. That is why it is so important for the 87th legislator to pass HB 2713 and SB 1416. So with that, I'm going to call up our next speaker. He's a former real estate commissioner here in the great state of Texas, Mr. Weston Martinez.
God bless Texas. Let me tell you what, we're not going to stand by and let anybody that looks like Santa Ana, is related to Santa Ana, or smells like Santa Ana, tear down any of our monuments here in this great state. And when I look across Texas, I see people that still know what freedom tastes like. I see people that still know what a history book is supposed to say. Y'all know the STAR test? This go around had a question in there about Do you know what a vaccine is for? Our state dollars paid for that. And right now, we've got people that are in my hometown. I call it the socialist capital of Texas, also known as San Antonio. We've got a group of people down there that they believe the history of, that it's not from Texas. They believe that the people that came into the Alamo, that they were pirates. See, most people don't know that in the Mexican school, they teach that Santa Anna was coming to Texas to take the pirates out of the Alamo. And he got their legislature to pass a bill, or to give him war authorization powers. Remember, he thought he was a little taller than Napoleon from the other side of the pond. He actually got them to agree with him, to give him the ability to come over here and do that. But let me tell you what, being from San Antonio, I can tell you that those people, like Councilman Trevino and Mayor Ron Nirenberg, have far more weapons at their disposal than even Santa Anna himself. And that is why we have to have the legislature come up in one voice and say that they will protect our Texas monuments. And it is not just... We have to have these bills passed. And you know what? It's because of the history that we don't know yet about the monuments that we already have. You guys might not know this, but we actually had the first black governor of Texas was buried in the Alamo as we know today. Oh, you didn't know that? The first black governor of Presidio was actually there, and he was buried in the first chapel that we see today. In fact, his name was Governor Blanco. Governor Blanco is descendant of a black person here in the state. He was governor of Coahuila and Texas. He was the first person buried in the Alamo today. Do y'all know that the Alamo that we see today is the third church built on that property? The first one was built where the current federal building is today, within the compound. And if we're going to take it back, we're going to take it all back, right? Amen. I personally think we should reverse eminent domain the whole thing and make it the National Cemetery of Texas. Amen. And honor all the lives that are there, because all these people that want to revise history, again, let me get it completely accurate for you. The first burial in the current third chapel is a black Presidio soldier named Juan Blanco, killed by the Indians. His great-grandfather was Governor Victor Blanco, first black governor of Coahuila in Texas. You see, a long time ago, there wasn't a lot of Anglos in Texas. Some of y'all might not know that. But our history is our history. What are we going to learn about our history tomorrow that we don't know today? That's why we need to honor what's taking place. And when we look at things that are being done by either a state agency or a rogue mayor, we have to unite in one voice. This is exactly why we limit our government to meeting in the state legislature every other year for a limited number of days. Because we don't trust politicians. And that's why we have to put people over politics. And these people that are here today, that serve, that have the opportunity to vote on these bills, 2713 and 1416, they need to make sure that they are out there promoting people over politics. What will they try to take down today that we don't know about tomorrow? What kind of plans are they conspiring? Do you know that the original founding priest of the oldest mission in San Antonio is not allowed to be remembered in the history? The reason why is because UNESCO World Heritage, aka connected to the United Nations, says that he enslaved Indians, Native Americans, and forced them to learn how to read, write, and farm. Ladies and gentlemen, when we talk about our history being revised, it has been happening long before these two bills got before us today. And I'm thankful that this group, this is Texas Freedom Force, has been on the front lines of defending the Alamo, defending the San Jacinto Monument, defending Goliad, and remembering what we have at stake here. And to you legislators that are watching, some of y'all hiding in your offices today, let me tell you what, not only are these eyes watching you, but the eyes of Texas are watching you. And you may want to run for something some other time in your life, but I guarantee you, we're going to take a short dally and take you out the backside of the pasture and make sure you can't do anything to us. Now, my name is Weston Martinez, and I swore oath like many of y'all. And I guarantee you, there's many more of us behind me that we don't know, we don't see here today. So God bless you, God bless the great state of Texas, and God remember the Alamo, and God protect our Texas monuments. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Weston Martinez.
Yes, ma'am.
So now our next speaker is former representative as well as the Agriculture Commissioner, Mr. Sid Miller.
Good afternoon, Patriots. Good afternoon. Thank y'all for coming out for this great cause. You know, as Agriculture Commissioner, we are kind of the Chamber of Commerce for the state. So I travel the globe promoting Texas and Texas agriculture. And I'm just telling you, it's the easiest thing I've ever done. Everybody wants to do business with a Texan. I mean, they see this hat and this gunfighter vest and, this West Texas accent, and they find out you're from Texas. You got it. That's it. It's just easy. And the reason is, it's our heritage. And that's what these monuments are about. It's preserving that heritage. It's our Western lifestyle. It's our family values. It's our rural heritage. It's everything that's dear to Texas is in our history. Remove our history and we're no longer special. We're just like the other 49 states, right? So that's why it's very important that we preserve everything that's Texas. They can say you can always tell a Texan, right? You just can't tell us much. We pretty much know it all, right? Everything's bigger in Texas and better in Texas, and our history preserves that. So that's why we want to work on this monument bill. We're down to the 3 days. We've got to get this calendars on the House floor and passed. The Senate bill hadn't even had a hearing yet in committee in the Senate. So it's a long shot and not a very good long shot. The House bill still has a chance, but it's got to move. We got to get it set. We got to get it on the House floor, get it off, and send it to the Senate. So I know y'all are here to help do that and push that. I've been working on this issue a long time. In 2005, when I was serving in the legislature, I filed the first monuments bill. I actually passed it out of committee, got it in the calendar, got it out of the calendar, got it on the House floor, and was just about to pass it. I'd fought off dozens of liberal amendments to gut it, was successful on all of those, and then my Republican colleagues turned on.
That's right.
Or we wouldn't, if they hadn't have done that, we possibly wouldn't even be here today needing to do this. We'd have been the first state in the nation that would have, passed a monument protection bill. And it was a good bill, reasonable bill. So we've been struggling with that ever since, but I appreciate everyone here. It means a lot to me to get these monuments preserved, whether it be, preserving the Alamo or San Jacinto or Sam Houston or Davy Crockett or Space Center in Houston. We've got so much of the Texas Rangers. They're taking those guys' statues down right out of the airport in Dallas. Couldn't believe it. So anyway, God bless y'all for what you do. Let's keep working. Let's don't give up. Let's fight to the very bitter end. Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. So our next speaker that's coming up represents the Republican Party. I'm going to introduce Jill Glover.
Thank you. my job is the chair of the Legislative Priorities Committee for the Republican Party of Texas. And last summer at our state convention, our delegates decided that protecting our monuments and statues in the state of Texas was so important that they voted to put that in the top 8 of our legislative priorities. So I am thrilled today that we are here discussing the importance of monument protection, and we urge the state legislature to pass these bills that will protect our history. The Bible tells us that we are to teach our children history, and these important monuments and statues tell us the story of our history, and we need to be able to point to these concrete monuments and things that represent what our forefathers have done for us. The Republican Party of Texas is blessed to have a gentleman who is serving as our historian. His name is Dr. Tim Westley. He is I believe he is a Texas Freedom Force member. Able to speak very eloquently about the importance of our monuments, and so I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Weston.
Hello, Texans. Hello. All right. I'm pleased to be here and honored to be here today to speak on monument protection. As I've traveled throughout Texas and I've talked to people about protecting our monuments at different times, I remind them that the monuments that we have throughout this great state, some of them you may love, some of them you may hate, many you may not even know exist, but at the end of the day, they're still history. That's right. I point out to people that the moment that you begin to allow monuments to be removed, you're now allowing people who are dead set on revising history an opportunity to do just that. If the monuments stand, whether you like them, love them, or hate them, that gives people an opportunity to reflect on history. How can we truly say that we came from a place if we don't know where that place was, if we don't know what that history represents? And I challenge people to ask them, how long before the monument that you love is now the target? At one point you'll say, well, I love this monument, but I hate this one. But at a certain point, someone on the other side will say, I want that monument removed as well. And we have no substance, no foundation of which to say, this is our history. We learn from history. This history, if you've got a monument, if one exists that you don't like, maybe you hate it because it ignites some emotional memories that are bad. This should also ignite those people to fight harder, to strive more, to push, to preserve, to navigate to higher grounds of history. If it's something you love, you should be able to speak about that thing you love and why you love it. Our history books, they're continually being changed. They're continually being changed. It's harder to revise a history if you have something solid and foundational to point to. A monument that's hundreds of years old, where you can say, this is substance of the truth, not what you're seeing in the history books. We have to understand that this history of these monuments, this was an expression of the people who created them. This was their expression. And so I challenge people, do we censor the authors of those expressions because we don't like the history that they created? No, we don't. Do we censor them? Do we apply today's standards? Think about this for a moment. Do we apply today's standards to history that was written yesterday? No. That's exactly what they're trying to do. When you remove a monument, that was someone's way of expressing themselves. And so to take today's standards and say, because this is not acceptable in 2021, we want to remove this monument. Incomprehensible. Yes. Incomprehensible. We have to understand that in this day and time, history, even if we do not like it, we stand to learn from it. It can be the best compass for us. We can learn from it. We have to understand that with this history and with the monuments, we're able to use them as roadmaps from the past, mapping pitfalls along the way to help us and ensure that we're able to navigate to greater places. Think about this for just a moment. What monument, what statue, what marker, I want you to leave with this, will be next? Which one will be next? I spoke at San Jacinto a while back, and one of the things I told the people, like it or love it, even if you hate it, at the end of the day, it's still history.
That's right.
If you don't like it, it's still history. If you hate it, it's still history. If you love it, it's still history. If you celebrate it, it's still history. Today, I challenge the legislators because we have an opportunity. We are in a position to cease a movement to destroy and ultimately rewrite an already written history. Remember, it is easier to revise a history which has been removed. It's easier to revise a history which has been removed. It's easier to revise a history which has been removed.
Yes.
Yep.
Today, we have a chance to stand for what is right, to stand for history, to be able to say in 2021, these legislators, this is Texas Freedom Force, Texans around the great state of Texas, patriots throughout this great state, decided that we're not going to sit, but we're going to stand like an 11th. It's still history. We must spare the future generations the pain and the circumstances of not knowing their history. We must spare them. We have an opportunity now to stand. Whether it's HB 2713, the Senate Bill 1416, others that we've been pushing from the Republican Party, HB 3013, HB 3584, we must stand to protect these monuments. I challenge you Texans today to call on, to visit, to email, to do whatever you need to do legally and ethically and morally to make sure that we put pressure on these legislators to let them know that we will remember that you did not stand for the right thing today, so that when tomorrow comes and you're wanting to be reelected, we will remind you that we're going to make you out of here. So as we leave with this. For anyone that challenges you, for anyone that says, oh, that structure is racist, oh, that structure brings back bad memories, oh, I hate that structure. Ask them, which structure do you love? Which one represents your life? Which one represents you? Ask them how long before it's removed. Ask them, do you believe that history is important? Ask them those things. And at the end of the day, they may decide just to be controversial, just to bug you just a little bit. But I want you all to leave with this. Like it, love it or hate it, it's still history. God bless you.
Thank you again, Dr. Tim Westley. So now we're going to move on to our grassroots speakers that we have. We're going to start this off with the Legislative Director of Sons of Confederate Veterans, Mr. John McCammon.
I don't know why Brandon is mad at me. I told him not to put me after Dr. Tim Weston. So I'll give you my short version. My name is John McCammon. I'm a United States veteran, 1st Squadron, 4th Cav, 1st Infantry Division, 1972 to 1974 United States Army. Veterans have been a part of my family for 6 generations. I ask you today, and this is to the legislature, do not let a minority of 2.7% erase the history of 6 generations of our soldiers, my family, from this state. Your family members, your veterans, the ones who were held in prison camps at Bataan, the ones that died in World War II liberating all of those countries in Europe. Do not let them erase their history. They're your family's history. Today is the day that history will record as the day true Texans stood up against the woke movement and saved our past. I speak to you today as a veteran, a historian that has too long watched media control woke pretenders, erasing history and destroying the common bond we all share. And yes, I say we all share. 97.3% of Texas voters said monument protection is foremost in this legislative session. Republicans, you have a 97% mandate. Legislatures, you have control of the House, you have control of the Senate and the governor. They're all Republicans. Are you going to stand up and do something? Are you going to repeat the sorry history that we have observed in the past? Will history record you as having part of that history which saved our monuments? Or will you say to your children and grandchildren, well, we tried. Well, I'll tell you what, you save our history and we'll remember you. You fail to remember our history and repeat the past, we will remove you. We will vote you out. Ladies and gentlemen of the legislature, you are the only thing that stands between the bill to save our state from erasure, and it will also save our history for future generations. You have promised to represent the 97% of the people that actually voted you in. What are you afraid of? You have a mandate to protect the monuments. Put the bill on the floor, and there is no further excuse. Show your courage, show your honesty, and show that you are a Texan. Move House Bill 2713 and Senate Bill 1416 right now, not later, right now. The people that voted you in want this done. Do your job.
Thank you again, Mr. John McCammon. So our next speaker that's coming up is the South Texas Brigade Commander, Mr. Shelby Little.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Shelby Little. I represent the South Texas Brigade of the Sons of Confederate Veterans here in Texas, and I am proud to be among you today. The time for talk is about over. As Commissioner Miller pointed out very well earlier, this has got to happen this week. And you folks who are in the legislature out there, you have the power to do it.
Amen.
So let's get it done.
Yes, sir.
You have, the people of Texas have made it very clear how they think about their history.
That's right.
They are very proud of it.
Yep.
All of it.
Yes, sir.
Some of it's not too pretty. We all know that. But as the good doctor pointed out, history is history. So you have control of all those things that Mr. McCammon talked about a little earlier. There is no excuse, there is no reason not to pass this out of committee and get it onto the floor this week. Make it happen. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Shelby Little. So our next grassroots speaker is from the United Daughters of the Confederacy. She is the president of the Texas Division, Miss Tammy Hurley.
Well, good afternoon. Good afternoon. Oh, y'all can do better. There's more energy here than that. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. I want you to fill in this blank for me. Everything's what in Texas?
Great.
Great. I heard it over there. Everything's bigger in Texas, isn't it? That includes our history. From the earliest days of Texas, our history has been important. I'm a 6th generation Texan. Texas has been important to me since I sat in that chair in Richardson, Texas, listening to 7th grade history, just like everybody in this room. And I became enamored with it. The history from our Native Americans to everything that spanned our 6 flags. I represent the Texas Division United Daughters of the Confederacy. Yes, I just said that, the Confederacy. You know as well as I do that we have been cherry-picked over the last several years, our monuments and markers across the state of Texas. And that upsets me. Does it upset anybody else? Yes. It should. Because if they take that, like Brandon said, if we give them an inch, if we let them take down our Confederate markers and monuments, what are they going to come after next? It's going to be something else. We cannot do that. Our Confederate history is part of our history. That Confederate veteran who fought for me, I have 8 that I have found so far, that blood flows through my veins. And I am proud of that. And not only that, but we also have other wars. My dad is a veteran of World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. Vietnam wasn't very popular to come back from. Well, you know what? That's history, isn't it? Just like our Confederate history. Let's keep our monuments and markers. I represent thousands of ladies across this great state. We have chapters in Lubbock, we have chapters in El Paso, we have chapters all over. Thousands of ladies that lately have been doing phone calls, emails, visits. They've done testimony to multiple committees here at the legislature because they are voters and they want the legislators to know what their votes are going to be. They also know, just like we've talked about today, that there was a mandate for the majority, which is currently the Republican Party, that 97.3% wanted monument protection mandated.
That's right.
We need to have them hear that. If our legislators don't hear that, then who are they legislating for? Because we have put our votes in to them as to what we want done. Our monuments are important. House Bill 2713, I am grateful for the legislators that have authored it. It currently has 22 co-sponsors. People are still getting on the monument protection train for 2713 as more legislators were getting on last week. So it needs to keep moving forward. We need to get this out of calendars, let it go to the House, let the Senate do what they need to do for 14-16, and get this bill on Governor Abbott's desk.
Amen.
Exceptional state, but people that are trying to take our history away are trying to be divisive. They're trying to be exclusionary, not inclusionary, and we need to include all history in Texas. That's right. May God bless Texas, and may God bless the Texas history. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Hurley. Great speech. All right, guys, so we're down to our last 3 speakers here, and they will be from the organization This Is Texas Freedom Force. For those that might be watching at home that do not know who This Is Texas Freedom Force is, we are the organization that held the Alamo in 2020 from 5,000 BLM rioters and looters who said that they were going to burn it to the ground.
God bless Texas.
We are the organization that fought 3.5 years to save the Alamo Cenotaph from the city of San Antonio and George B. Bush. We have fought alongside the Son of Confederate veterans on certain monuments and the UDC as well. And we have been all over the great state of Texas. So my remarks that I'm going to read to you right now are on behalf of the entire organization. So first off, I'd like to start by thanking the TITFF members for your tireless efforts to pass this Monument Protection Bill 2713 and SB 1416. I'd also like to thank the Sons of Confederate Veterans and the UDC for y'all's tireless efforts of phone calling these House representatives, talking to senators, trying to get these bills to move, testifying in committee. I'd also like to thank the Republican Party for making this bill a priority this year. We surely appreciate that help, and if we don't get it done this year, we really hope that it will be a priority again in the next legislature, the 88th legislative session. Y'all should be proud, especially all of you that are standing here today. You are the boots on the ground against the fight to protect our Texas history. Too many people want to erase it, and we've got to put an end to it. I also like to give a special thank you to Senator Creighton and his staff, for that matter. They've been our biggest advocate in seeing a monument protection bill passed in Texas. Senator Creighton was the first person to file a monument protection bill in the great state of Texas back in 2017, when it wasn't on anybody else's radar. He filed another bill again in 2019, and despite strong opposition from Senate Democrats, they called him every name in the book on the Senate floor when he argued it. He still stood strong like a tough Texan and fought to see SB 1663 passed through the Senate in 2019. This year, Senator Creighton once again filed SB 1416 and was prepared to argue the merits of the bill. For all this, we thank you, Senator Creighton, and your staff, and we are indebted to you for your efforts. And we look forward to working with you in the future, and we wish you a speedy recovery. We'd also like to thank State Representative Slaton for filing HB 2571, another monument protection bill, and co-authoring HB 2713, which is the bill that we have right now. Representative Slaton is a true Texan, a man who listens to the people, and a man who fights for Texas histories and Texas values. Thank you so much. Last, we'd like to thank Senators Betancourt, Buckingham, Campbell, Hall, Hughes, Colhorst, Paxton, Perry, Springer, and Schwertner for co-authoring Senator Creighton's bill in the Senate. And last but not least, we'd like to thank in the House Representatives White, Metcalf, Bell, Tinderholt, Slaton, Bossett, Wilson, Kane, and Toth for being strong supporters of Texas history and monument protection. So now that I've got the pleasantries out the way, let's get down to brass tacks. In 2020, 97.3% of conservative Texans voted to pass a monument protection bill. It is extremely difficult to argue with those numbers. The Republican Party made a monument protection bill a priority in the 87th legislative session. Republicans control the House, they control the Senate, they control the governorship, they control the lieutenant governorship, they control every single committee, including the House Committee and the House Calendars Committee. This is Texas Freedom Force has spent 249 hours here at the Capitol this session working on HB 2713 and SB 1416. This is not collective hours either. We're talking individual hours per person. Collectively, we have easily surpassed over 1,000 hours here at the Texas Capitol this session. Yet despite this, we still sit here at the 11th hour waiting for a monument protection bill, HB 2713, to be passed out of the Calendars Committee so that it can be read and voted on the House floor, and Senator Creighton can pass it in the Senate. Senator Creighton was ready to push SB 1416 at the beginning of this session. The bill was filed, it had its first reading, then referred to the Natural Resources and Economic Development Committee. Senator Birdwell, who is the chair of that committee, never allowed public testimony inside that committee. We learned earlier in the session that Senate leadership instructed the committee chair to sit on this bill, saying, "We passed this bill in the Senate in 2019 and it didn't have the support in the House, so we're not going to waste our time on it this year." And that is an absolute lie. When the bill was passed out of the Senate in the 86th legislative session, that bill had 1 week before the session ended before it got to the House. The House does not move as quickly as the Senate does, so therefore there was never a first reading, a second reading, third reading, and there definitely wasn't a vote on it on the House floor. So you cannot say that it did not have the support it needed to pass. At that point, TITFF turned our attention towards HB 2713 in the House, and we lobbied state reps, and finally on April 19th, public testimony was heard in the Culture, Recreational, and Tourism Committee. The bill was looked on favorably in the committee and passed on to the Calendars Committee on April 30th. Since then, it has sit in calendars. TITFF lobbied state representatives in the Calendars Committee with little to no interest shown by any of the committee members. And let me remind you, there's 7 Republicans that sit on that committee and 4 Democrats. We also sat several times in the Calendar Committee meetings, just feet away from the state representatives, to let them know that we are watching and we are waiting for this bill to be passed. We stopped by their offices every day, sometimes 2 or 3 times a day, to remind them of the importance of this bill. We pressed the author of the bill to fight for this bill as hard as TITFF has been fighting for this bill. We were brushed off, and it almost seems like the author of this bill never intended this bill to get as far as it did. Maybe if he wasn't so busy trying to chase tail around the Capitol, he could get to work on some bills and get stuff passed. There was no fire in his eyes and definitely no thunder in his voice. So the bill still sits in calendars, and this is a total failure on the part of the state representatives that sit on the Calendars Committee. You cannot blame this one on the Democrats. This is on you. That's right. If you can't listen to the will of the people, Texans, and again, I'll say it one more time, 97.3% of conservative Texans voted for this bill, then you have no business representing the people. Last summer, this Texas Freedom Force was extremely busy, driving all over the state of Texas, fighting to save monuments against the emboldened left who was trying to vandalize and destroy our Texas history, our historic monuments. Our biggest battle was at the Alamo on May 30th, 2021, when 150 of TITFF members faced off against 5,000 Antifa, BLM, and Brown Beret rioters and looters who threatened to burn the Alamo to the ground. We not only held the Alamo that night, but we also protected between 2 to 3 dozen law enforcement officers when they were overran. They got behind our lines, and we protected them just like we were protecting the Alamo, because we do back the blue. Thank you. When we left the Alamo that night, DPS lined up in a row to high-five our members as we walked out of there. President Trump, as well as his son, dubbed This Is Texas Freedom Force the new Alamo Defenders. Whoa. I'm telling you all this because we are the boots on the ground type of an organization. If we're willing to face off with 5,000 rioters and looters, we have no problem driving to each one of these state representatives' districts and tell their constituents that they are the ones who have history being removed. As an organization, we have played the game for 3 legislative sessions and done things the right way. This year, again, you cannot blame it on time running out in the House or that the Democrats blocked your effort to pass this monument protection bill. This failure and disregard of the will of Texans falls solely on the Lieutenant Governor, the Senate Committee Chair, and the state representatives that sit on the House Calendars Committee.
That's right.
This is Texas Freedom Force, who has 60,000 members and supporters across the great state of Texas, will now focus our efforts to inform your constituents of your disregard and neglectfulness to protect our beloved Texas history. Also, this is Texas Freedom Force directors are discussing the formation of a PAC to be able to funnel funds to their opponents that run against them that are willing to stand up and fight for our Texas history.
That's right.
And if you think that's an empty threat, I advise you to give the mayor of San Antonio a call in the city council, and they'll tell you that that thorn in their side became a crowbar for 3.5 years. The last thing I will say is this. If a monument protection bill doesn't go to the House floor and someone gets hurt trying to protect our Texas history, because we all know that things have escalated and it's gotten way out of hand when they are trying to vandalize or destroy our monuments, we're going to make sure that the blame is placed solely on those 7 Republican House representatives that sit on that Calendars Committee.
Yes.
So I'm going to bring up our next speaker. He's our San Antonio Outreach Director and kind of my right-hand man. This guy runs around with me everywhere. And he spent a lot of time up here at the Capitol. Not only that, but many nights at the Alamo and the Alamo Cenotaph. So I'd like to introduce our TITFF Director, Mr. Ramon.
Come on.
Don't freeze up now. I've titled this speech, if you will, 97.3%.
There you go.
Y'all have already heard that is Texans, conservative Texans across the state, voted to protect our history, all our monuments. But this is to our Lieutenant Governor, Dan Patrick. You're the one in 2019 that presented that questionnaire to all Republicans here, all conservatives. What do Texans really feel about their history? 97.3% answered that and said, protect our history. You ain't doing it. You're not even trying. You were in the spotlight for 2 minutes regarding our history and that's it. You've been silent ever since. Texans across the state are angry. 254 counties across the state. Registered voters are angry because y'all are destroying our history. Our monuments are in jeopardy. We have the voters, we have the numbers, we have people all across this great state here ready to go forward. But y'all are just sitting on y'all are just sitting on it. I'm trying to be nice. Folks, this is to everybody here that's listening right now. I'm proud of everybody who came out today. All of our members that are here, our guests that showed up. That's just what Texas is. People from different backgrounds are coming together. You legislators have forgotten that. We're the ones in charge.
That's right.
We're the ones that put you up there. But that's what we're here to remind you that. You know, the last time I had one of our videos I just reminded everybody, 97.3. That's a number I want everybody to remember. You know, I actually worked in one of the polling sites during the election that year in 2019, and I'll be honest, some Democrats were asking, where is that on our we can't even vote on this, and that's right, you can't. But let me tell you something, a lot of Democrats also feel the same way, protect our history.
Right.
This is not political. You got Republicans and Democrats, actually some that I'm related to, that say we're glad you're protecting our history. Folks, you're not going to chase us away. I want also to let everybody know, SB 1416, the Senate bill to protect our history, was filed on March 18th. Here we are, legislation's almost over. Why is it still sitting there when the Republicans have said that's a priority? Our history's priority. Why is it still sitting? It hasn't been heard. The committee's sitting on it. Brandon touched up on based on why it is. HB 446, another bill that we supported. State Representative Allison wrote that bill to protect, well not to protect, excuse me, to increase the punishment, the fines, if anybody wants to deface our statues and monuments and also our places of worship. Yes. That bill is still sitting. The committee never voted on it. They listened to us. That was on April 26th that we were out here. One of those nights we stayed late. Folks, the Texans have said what they wanted. HB 2017-13, come on. This is to all you legislators out there. Listen to the people. Because now, if these bills are not passed, whatever happens to our state is in your hands. You get to be, the dirt is on you. Folks, I'm proud of being a Texan, and I'm proud of our history. A lot of people want to make it a racist thing too. No, it's not. Our history is our history. Doesn't matter what side of the fence you sit on. Our history is not the prettiest, but it's ours. And every Texan is proud of it. Another gentleman I want to introduce, not introduce, but bring to attention, State Representative Kyle Biedermann. He's been fighting with us too. Not along with us, I should say, not with us. He's been fighting along with us. He had a bill to protect our Alamo. That's sitting. To me, all of that's disgusting. Remember, priority means it should be put first.
That's right. Yes.
Bills like the mermaids in San Marcos, what the heck's that all about? You know they voted that same night, but they heard it? When we were listening to some of our important bills of our history, that shows you where the priority is, folks. Now Texans, before I leave, I just want to let y'all remember, I want to remind you of one thing. Like we told San Antonio City Council, this is Texas Freedom Force, is not going anywhere. We got folks all across the state of Texas, from the Panhandle down to the Valley. I know y'all have heard me say that before, it's the truth. We got members, we got people that support us, all across the state of Texas. This is Texas Freedom Force is still growing. We're not going anywhere.
That's right.
So we're going to actually bring in another speaker here. He filed HB 3013 to keep the focus of the Alamo on the Battle of the Alamo. So it's my pleasure to introduce Representative Kyle Biedermann.
Hey, God bless Texas! Woo! Amen.
Well, I'm heading to the House floor right now. We got a lot of bills we're going to hear today, a lot of bills that came before, some of the most important bills that didn't get heard and are not going to be on the floor, including these bills about our monuments and a bunch of other bills, including Texas independence, starting the discussion, letting the people vote on the future of the state of Texas. And that bill is so important that we're actually having a press conference tomorrow morning at 8:30. And then we're going to have our own virtual hearing, and the people's voices will be heard on why they believe that Texas needs to start working on independence. We look what's happening in the state of Texas, we look what's happening in the country. Look at the taxes, look at the debt, look at our rights being taken away, Second Amendment rights, all sorts of rights being taken away, all the regulation coming from the federal government. If the people don't stand up, we will not have any leverage as the legislature to do anything. If we have the people behind us, we'll have leverage to be able to negotiate, and if we can't negotiate, the next step is, if the people want it, we leave. And that's what that bill is about. And we got a bunch of people that really don't think that we're for real, and they don't think it's true. But how much longer can this country go on the track it's going? How much longer before somebody has the guts to stand up and say, we're not going to take it anymore. This is against our Constitution. This is against America. This is against being a patriot of this country. And our people that fought for our freedom didn't fight for this type of government that is overreaching the states and the people of Texas and every other state. It's unfortunate that our legislature doesn't want to start looking at the future, looking long-term, having a vision for where Texas should be. And that's what we need to start doing, looking long-term. Because from what we see the federal government doing, their overreach, their tyrannical behavior, we fought twice against tyrannical behavior as Americans, as patriots, and as Texans in the Texas Revolution. We don't need to fight again. We need to start discussing and getting the people behind us so that we can start letting them know we're not going to take it anymore. And the other states are looking at us, and the other states are hoping that Texas will stand strong and that we can change this country, or else we become our own country again. God bless Texas!
Alrighty, so for our final speaker, he's going to be our closer today. This man has been all over the state with us. He became our vice president back in 2018, and we gave him the nickname Rocky for a reason. So I'd like to introduce our vice president, Mr. Lamar Lemon.
Hit him where it hurts, Rock!
Texans, everybody's pretty much said everything that needs to be said, so I'm going to do it from a little bit different approach, mainly from the criminal outlook, because Texas vandalism and outright destruction is criminal, and it should be treated as such. Criminal penalties are well past due for such lawlessness. This state legislature is letting the clock run out again, just like 2 years ago, on laws to stop criminal behavior and impose the needed and necessary punishment on those who choose to vandalize or destroy historical monuments and structures. Texans say this is unacceptable, and they want something done about it now. The people are subjected to endless newscasts of violent riots across the country. Many are monuments being destroyed or vandalized by anarchists and hate groups. This behavior is not limited to some Civil War artifacts, but extends now to Christopher Columbus, Abraham Lincoln, George Washington, our American veterans, and even religious monuments. We have witnessed for years, far too many years, bills written to remove, actually censor, history by calling for removal of that which the authors deem offensive, or unjust, or more at the present time, not woke. This agenda is not supported by the citizens of Texas, and as the other speakers have already said, Texans do not believe history should be censored, and in fact, 97.3% of Republicans polled said leave the monuments alone. Now, most everyone is familiar with the years-long battle over the Alamo and the cenotaph, the empty tomb erected for the heroic defenders at the Alamo in 1836. Our organization was at the forefront of this battle. However, not as well known is the fact that the Alamo Plaza was callously subjected to a corporate greed scheme to essentially create a theme park out of the Alamo complex. The cenotaph was just in their way, having been deliberately put there and positioned there in the center of the battlefield on purpose. San Antonio state officials and corporate people wanted it removed. Then, after public outcry from Texans who knew about this, they called for removal to an obscure location, blocks away, with no connection to the battlefield. After more outcry from us and others, the schemers settled on the idea of let's just move the cenotaph 500 feet outside the Alamo footprint to a so-called free speech zone, offering no protection whatsoever. Keep in mind, now we're talking about the Alamo complex is the single most loved treasure of Texas. We said back then, don't move the cenotaph. We said not 1 inch was our call. Any move would have been an insult, even 1 inch. Yet to the bureaucrats, the structure was just merely a block of stone. They had no respect whatsoever for the dead, no qualms about the censoring and rewriting of the history regarding the Battle of the Alamo by adding irrelevant storylines to the narrative to diminish the 1836 battle and the defenders. In their case, it was driven by greed and globalism with a measure of racism and socialism thrown in. But now, since the Texas Historical Commission ruled the cenotaph is not to be moved, and due in large measure to our organization's efforts, by the way, the same instigators, again, are pushing a theme park agenda, but now with even more racial overtones. And I am dwelling on this for a reason, Texans. In May 2020, the cenotaph was vandalized, spray painted with racist words which permanently stained the marble. On May 30th, this is Texas Free and Forts, 150 of us strong, successfully defended the cenotaph and the Alamo Chapel against many thousands of BLM, Antifa, and other misfit protesters turned rioters who converged at the Alamo while vandalizing businesses along the way. They clearly threatened the cenotaph and the chapel, but that night we stood our ground and stopped this.
Yeah, that's right.
I mentioned the cenotaph to emphasize the problem with monument removal and vandalism in general that has spread all across Texas and beyond. We have protected with numerous monuments throughout the last 3.5 years. It is not so much about a few people being offended by things, but more about hate and hateful expression, hell-bent on destruction of our society. Tearing down monuments and statues is something we associate with groups like the Nazis or ISIS. Here in America, we must call it what it is. It is anarchy, Marxism, and domestic terrorism. That's right. Plain and simple. When there are not consequences for criminal behavior, it encourages those actions to continue. We all know this to be true by the many regulations and penalties imposed on society for many infractions, misdemeanors and felonies. Without penalties, we will continue to see more of the same, only it will be worse in the future. Vandalism, destruction, and theft will continue to be viewed as just no big deal, just protest by mostly peaceful rioters or some corrupted version of freedom of expression. I will tell you right now that it is none of this. It is an attack on history that spans across good and bad, history that people could learn from and to improve upon mistakes of the past. Legislative protection of Texas historical monuments and structures is now being sought for the third time. This is the third session. This session, it is listed as one of the priorities of the Republican agenda. There is no significant opposition to the various protection bills, but yet one bill, HB 2713, is right now being held up in the Calendars Committee for no good reason. The votes are there to move the bill on to the Senate, where senators are impatiently waiting with SB 1416 to get it done and passed. The Calendars Committee needs to do their job and send HB 27 on to the Senate.
That's right.
That's right.
Yep. Just to stall this bill now for reasons of politics will be an insult to the citizens of Texas, just plain and simple. The committee's members' actions or inaction, either way, will not be forgotten when voting time rolls around. Our message here today is loud and clear. If this monument protection bill is left to die, if movement to the Senate doesn't happen, it will create a new rallying cry to vote in new lawmakers who will actually listen to the wishes of Texas citizens and do the job for which they were sent here to the Capitol.
That's right.
They're not chair warmers.
That's right.
Pacifying the minority in those committees is not one of those jobs. If the Democrats were in the majority, they wouldn't give the Republicans the time of day.
That's right. That's right.
If you don't think so, just look at the national scene in Washington, D.C. Classic example right there. Voters have had a belly full of this and will replace those not willing to show that they have a spine and get things done. Members in the Calendar Committee, speaking to them, time is running short. Laws and penalties for crime is the work of the House and the Senate. Send HB 2713 on to the Senate and be remembered favorably for it. Or if you let it die, you will be remembered as those responsible. Either way, you are going to own it, and voters will remember. We will be there to help them remember.
That's right.
That's right.
My organization, this Texas Freedom Force, will be as relentless in this cause as we were in the fight for the Alamo and other actions. I relish it myself. We are a no-nonsense group and have demonstrated in the past that we can be a terrible thorn under their saddle. Again, this is Texas Freedom Force says to you lawmakers here in the Capitol, actions have consequences.
That's
right. Many thanks to all of the great speakers today and to every person who took time to attend today. God bless this great state of Texas, and God bless all of you.
Well, that concludes our press release for today. But many people that are at home that will be watching this video when it's posted later this evening are probably asking, what can they do to help out? The members that are all here in this outdoor rotunda, this is Texas Freedom Force as well as Sons of Confederate Veterans and the UDC, are going to visit the members of the Calendars Committee in their offices right now. What you can do at home is write those Calendars Committee members an email, give them a call, bother them for the next day or two, and tell them to get HB 2713 out of Calendars Committee and onto the House floor so that we can get a monument protection bill passed.
Right.
Before we go, Brandon has thanked everybody here, members, volunteers, the support and everything, and we appreciate it. And I know I can speak for the directors of how much appreciative are that we of Brandon, that of countless hours that he puts in, and time, money, and effort. I want to thank Stephanie, because when she married him in June, she married all of us. and we love her for that, so we want to thank her. And lastly but not least, I got a message Saturday morning that Kong, his service dog, died. 5:41 that morning. And everybody that knew Kong loved Kong. Kong spent as many hours here sometimes as we did. So we want to remember that too, because Kong's vest is here somewhere. I saw it. And so he's with us too. But anyway, I just wanted to give Brandon and Stephanie a big thank you for all that they do, because it is not glorious at all, but they've got us where we are today. So thank y'all, appreciate it.